Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the playoffs start in just 5 days. So I thought before I fill out my bracket, break down my bracket, I'd hear from you guys. Give me some of your hot takes. So I asked on Instagram and I got like over 100 responses in under an hour. It was absolutely insane. I love you guys. I got 16 that I chose and we're going to go through it right now. People that are very high on one team. People think that one team's going to shit the bed in the first round. A player is going to absolutely ball out. We're going to go through it now. Thank you guys so much for submitting. And up first, we got something regarding Sergei Bobrovsky in the Florida Panthers. Kyle says, Sergei Bobrovsky has a disastrous playoffs, and the Panthers find themselves in Cancun early. And when looking at it, this would be pretty wild considering last year, although Matthew Tkachuk balled out, it was definitely Sergei Bobrovsky that was the backbone of the Florida Panthers run. Could he have a reversal and kind of be the reason that they lose? It's definitely possible, although I would say Bobrovsky is arguably having his best regular season as a Florida Panther. Obviously, back in 2022, he had very good counting numbers, but that team had, like 122, 124 points. So I think Bobrovsky is in form. I wouldn't bet on this happening, but I think people also forget that the Florida Panthers last year, although they won the Stanley Cup, although they made the Stanley Cup final, you look at their run, and they were down 3-1 to the Boston Bruins until Bobrovsky flipped the switch and just balled out. Against the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think 3 of their wins were by 1 goal, a couple in overtime. The Carolina Hurricanes was a sweep, according to Ron Brindamore, wasn't a sweep, but he does have some points in the sense that 2 of them were overtime games. One was a Matthew Tkachuk goal with 5 seconds left. So it's not like Florida's run last year was dominant, although they are playing better in the regular season this year. It's mostly the same core for the most part. So I wouldn't be shocked if Bobrovsky plays poor and the Florida Panthers lose to the wild card team or a wild card team in like Tampa, or they end up losing to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Wouldn't really shock me that much. Next up, Sidney Crosby. This comes from C Mills 87. I assume that he is a Sidney Crosby fan based on that. Crosby and the Pens go on a run and win the chip, and Sid is the GOAT. I'm not going to be picking the Penguins to be making the Stanley Cup final or winning the Stanley Cup final, but I can maybe see it, considering how much experience they have, how many winning players that they have on their team. I could see Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson just put the team on their back and go on a deep run. Am I predicting it? Of course not. But when looking at it, if Sidney Crosby did get another Stanley Cup, still wouldn't be the GOAT. I think it's almost impossible for him to catch Wayne Gretzky, considering Gretzky's trophy case is just so much bigger. But he would definitely have a strong argument to go over Bobby Orr. I probably would place him over Bobby Orr for third. Mario still, I think, had a much better prime than a Sidney Crosby, but he would slide safely into that third spot. And if he continued to play with the longevity, passing Mario in career points, he could definitely end up being the second greatest player of all time. I think that's definitely possible. Next up with the Leafs, Rister says, Leafs finally break out after this being their worst chance in the Matthews era since like 2017. And I said something similar in yesterday's video. When talking about the Leafs, I feel like they don't have a ton of pressure compared to last year, going so all in at the deadline. COVID year, win the Canadian division, losing the first round, blow a 3-1 lead. So yeah, I could maybe see that the players don't have as much pressure as in previous seasons, and they kind of just have an underdog mentality, shock the world, go on a deep run. That would be funny as hell. If I still hate it, don't get me wrong, but that'd be very funny if the Leafs win. Everybody just counts them out. Don't even really just throw them to the side. More concerned with the Panthers, the Bruins, the Canes, the Rangers. This is the year that the Leafs go deep when basically no one has expectations for them. That would be very funny. Next up, the LA Kings. Kings make it to the finals and lose to the Hurricanes. The Kings are a decent team. I think that they could potentially be a dark horse team. It's weird because we all say that the goaltending is a problem. Goaltending is the biggest need with this team. Although David Riddick and Cam Talbot have both been very solid in terms of the regular season, just rightfully so. I'm not sure that you can trust either one come the playoffs. But if they can get solid goaltending from one of those guys, Drew Doughty locks it up, Mikey Anderson, they're very defensively sound. Obviously, play that 1-3-1, very boring hockey. But that's the one thing that does hold me. Not that I don't think it's very reasonable, just because they're so defensive. I don't think that they can have the scoring. Could they win a round? Definitely. They have a pretty deep forward core, so I can't see them going that deep. Could they beat the Oilers or something like that? It's possible, but the LA Kings making the Stanley Cup final, I personally don't think is going to happen. Next up, my Islanders. Islanders could beat the Rangers. I think they definitely could. Would I pick them? No, I pick Rangers in 6, but when looking at their three games this season, it has been pretty balanced. If anything, the Islanders have honestly maybe even been the better team. Stadium series up 2-3 goals. I think it was 3 goals at one point. Yeah, it was 4-1. Looking at that, they obviously just blew it. last Thursday, they were up 3-0, 4-0, ended up winning that game. And then most recently on Saturday, they were up 2-1 down the stretch in the third period. As long as the Islanders could stay out of the penalty box, I think they definitely could potentially pull off an upset against the Rangers that are a little bit of a weaker 5-on-5 team. Their special teams are fantastic, as well as Igor being very good, but their 5-on-5 compared to some other contenders is a little bit below average. So I think the Islanders, with their experience, with their physicality, could match up pretty decent against the Rangers. Wouldn't pick them. Definitely could see it happen. Vancouver Canucks. Canucks are getting swept in the first round, not winning a single game. I think the only way that this could happen is if Thatcher Demko is actually not 100%, which I think he is going to be 100%. I think they're taking as much time as possible with him. But if he's not 100% and he struggles, they have to throw in DeSmith, and they're just getting absolutely lit up. Maybe I could see them getting swept by a Nashville or a Vegas, but I think they're going to win at least one game. I don't think that they're going to end up getting swept. But if they lose in the first round, I don't think it would be that shocking as the Pacific Division champs, considering this core doesn't have a ton of playoff experience and the question marks surrounding Demko wouldn't be that surprising. Vegas, despite all their players coming back, Vegas will be out in the first round in 5 to 6 games. Yeah, I could definitely see this. Vegas, in my opinion, is one of the most talented teams in the entire NHL, but they've dealt with a ton of injuries and their team doesn't have a ton of chemistry coming into the season, although a decent amount of the core pieces are from last year. You had Theodore out for a while, Eichel was out for a while, Stone. You have not seen the full look Vegas Golden Knights, and although you probably are going to have some practices leading up to the playoffs fully healthy, it's not the same as live game action, so it wouldn't surprise me if they do lose to the Edmonton Oilers in 5-6 games. They do lose to the Vancouver Canucks or Dallas Stars in 5 or 6 games. The talent is definitely there, but the overall team fit, chemistry might not be there for the Vegas Golden Knights, and as a result, they could be out in the first round. Wouldn't really surprise me. Talking about Canadian teams, we got this from Mathis1. No Canadian team makes the second round. This is, I guess, possible. There's probably, like an 8 to 12% chance if you give all 4 teams a 50% chance to win, which isn't exact. But when you look at that, it would be around 12.5%, I think, doing my basic math. So it's definitely possible. I think the Oilers probably win in the first round. I definitely give the Canucks like a 60% chance to win in the first round. Jets going to be tough against the Avalanche, and the Leafs going to be very tough. All of them losing would be pretty funny. The Canadian Cup drought, cup curse goes on another year. I would like to see that. It'd be funny, but I personally think at least one Canadian team will win a round. Call me crazy. The Jets cruise to the Western Conference Finals, sticking on Canadian teams. If this is going to happen, if they cruise, I think you'd have to see Connor Hellebuck have like a 940 save percentage. I think it's very possible that they beat the Colorado Avalanche, especially after beating the brakes off them 7-0. Dallas might be a little bit of a harder task. I'm very high on Dallas, but considering you look at them in net, Georgiev versus the Avalanche, Jets have a clear advantage. Ottinger has not looked himself. Connor Hellebuck going to win the goddamn Vezina. So in basically every single series in the entire Stanley Cup playoffs, they're going to have the advantage in net, especially in the Western Conference, unless Thatcher Demko looks fantastic when he returns. So they have that one deciding factor. And as we saw at the start of the video talking about it, Bobrovsky carried the Jets, or the Florida Panthers, to the Stanley Cup final last year. It could definitely happen with Hellebuck as well, but I don't think that they're going to cruise. I think they're going to have a 6 or 7 game series with Colorado, and then Dallas would go 6 or 7 as well. A cruise suggests like they win in 5 in both. I don't think that that's going to happen. Next up, the Oilers and the Kings. This is talking about the LA Kings again. The Oilers lose in 5 to LA. I don't know about this, man. When you look at the last time that they met up, first time, 7-game series, fantastic. Then last year, 6 games, Oilers kind of just took care of business. I think of the Oilers and the Oilers just have too much high-end offensive talent. I think they'd win in 5 or 6 games, but maybe the LA Kings 1-3-1 can absolutely stifle them and just play some boring-ass hockey and shut down McDavid. The other thing, McDavid and Draisaitl have been so dominant against them, especially last year. I don't know if they're going to be able to shut them down even with that 1-3-1. Colorado's a first-round exit with a really good shot at getting swept. I could definitely understand this considering how bad a guy like Georgiev has been playing. I can't see them getting swept when looking at it. I think you got to pencil in one game of just Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar taking over a game, having 2 to 3 points each, balling out. But I definitely could see them losing in 5. I could see them losing in 6 to the Winnipeg Jets, considering they got dogged on Saturday. But I think that they're definitely going to put up a fight and lose in 6 or 7 games. Next up, for Fever and Nets, 3-round sweeps. 3 first-round sweeps. I'll say the East 1 seed, Hurricanes, and whoever the Kings play. 3 sweeps is crazy. I would set the line, honestly, at 0.5 sweeps. When looking at it, I don't think that there was a single sweep in the first round last year. Yeah, Yeah, there wasn't. A sweep is very hard to do in the National Hockey League. All three happening. I can't really see that happening. I think the LA Kings will just steal a game when you're talking about that. What else did he say? What other teams? The Hurricanes, I guess, against the Islanders or the Penguins. They'll probably win in 5 or 6, but a sweep, that's definitely a little bit bold. Sorry, just took a little drink of my water. Next up, Jordan Bibas, Stars, first round exit. I'm obviously very high in the Dallas Stars. The only reason that this could happen similarly to the Vancouver Canucks, a sweep, Jake Ottinger would have to play pretty bad. They would have to be taking out Jake Ottinger by game 3 and replacing him with Scott Wedgwood. I think the Dallas Stars just have far too much depth. Offensively, obviously, they're 3 lines deep. Defensively, after getting Chris Tanev, they are very deep. I think the Dallas Stars are just too good of a team to potentially get swept, especially by a wild card team. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I bet my life on that, even if it was minus 2,000 odds. Tampa wins their 3rd cup in 5 years. Cooch wins the Conn Smythe, and they become a dynasty. A lot of people are saying that Tampa could potentially go on a deep run, and I think that they're far more dangerous than whatever the 2nd wild card team in the East is going to be, or the 3rd Metro Division team. They're clearly better, a step up from that. Can they go on a deep Stanley Cup run? Obviously, Vasilevsky has that track record that says that he can. I think they're just too shallow in terms of their bottom 6, as well as the fact that they just don't have that number 2 defenseman. When looking at recent Stanley Cup winners, everybody has that elite number 1 defenseman, and even Hedman's having a bit of a down year, but also that number 2 that can chew on minutes. Pietrangelo, Theodore, Makar, Taves. Tampa had basically 2 number 2s in Hedman, Sergachev, McDonough. So I just don't really see that with this year's team with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I can't see them having the defensive depth in order to go on a deep playoff run. Hedman's going to have to be playing like 30 minutes a night, which I'm not sure that he can do at his age. So I'm a little bit lower on the Tampa Bay Lightning going on a deep run. But, I mean, yeah, I think anybody would say that they're pretty low on Tampa going on a deep run, considering they are a wild card spot. Next up, going back to the Jets and the Avalanche, with the 7-0 win over Colorado, that will motivate the Avs, and they will sweep the Jets. I definitely get what you're saying, that they were so humiliated, but I don't think that Colorado is going to need a ton more motivation. This is the Stanley Cup playoffs. It definitely adds to a degree that now people are saying that the Jets are going to beat them in the playoffs, but I think Nathan McKinnon's going to get that group motivated as hell regardless, so I don't think that that has a massive effect in either direction, honestly. I think people that are saying, oh, the Jets are going to win in 5 games because they beat them in a 7-0 regular season game, I think that's also ridiculous. So I think it's just going to be a very good series that goes 6 or 7 games. And then lastly, I like this one a lot from Jack Davis. Ryan Leonard signs with the Caps if they make the playoffs. I personally would not do this. If he was a prospect on like the Toronto Maple Leafs or just an actual playoff team, I don't know why I use the Toronto Maple Leafs, but if he was on a playoff team that actually had some serious realistic chance at making a Stanley Cup run, yeah, I'd bring up Ryan Leonard. I think he possibly could be a 3rd liner at the NHL level next season, but if you're Washington, you're probably not going on a deep playoff run. Why would you burn a year of his ELC? And then he's playing on the team next year as well. I personally would send Ryan Leonard back to college, back to BC. Well, not send him back. Just keep him. Keep him at Boston College. Have another year development. Sign him next spring or something when he's ready. When he's really ready. When he can walk in and be a top 6 forward. I think rushing him to the NHL, which he can be an NHL ready guy, but I think you let him dominate with that fantastic line at Boston College next year instead of throwing him to the Wolves where he might get picked on a little bit. So I don't like the idea of bringing up Ryan Leonard. Don't do that. You're not. It's not like Cale Makar in 2019, and he won the Hobie Baker, and then he got called up. He was legit NHL ready. Ryan Leonard, not quite the case, not quite on a contender. Don't do that. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about these hot takes? Drop some other hot takes in the comment section, and I'll let you know what I think, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.